Hi guys, so today I would like to do even a deeper dive into variables. So I'm in Visual Studio Code. Let's go to open folder, create a new folder called variables2. Select it, terminal, new terminal, .NET, new console. Let's select program.cs. So that's a default program, hello world. Yes, we want debugging to be enabled. Let's remove this. So there's few things from last time that I want to just show that I missed. One is that variable name cannot start with a number. So I can do int number 1, that's allowed. But if I go int 1 number, it tells me that it's not allowed. Also, if I go, for example, string pound name, it also doesn't allow it. So it's important to remember that any prefix like numbers and symbols except string name at sign is allowed. So keep that in mind that variable names should start with a letter. So let me add notes. The below are illegal. Variable declarations. Another thing I want to mention is that notice that number 1 is declared but doesn't have a value. So when I go console right line, the content of number 1 is, and when I try to concatenate it, it doesn't like it. Use of unassigned local variable number 1. So notice, so it's a bucket of type integer name number 1, but there is nothing inside that bucket. So when I do this, it tries to print the content of that bucket. Those contents do not exist. So it's freaking out and doesn't let you. There's a way to handle this to check if there's anything inside that bucket, but that's for a later time. Also, notice I can do int number 2, int number 3, int number 4. But I can also, using a shortcut notation, I'm just going to do an extra R, do int number 2, comma, number 3, comma, number 4. The same thing with value assignments, right? So I can assign 2 to this one, 3 to this one, 4 to this one, Or I can do the same thing within one line. Assign 2 to this one, 3 to this one, 4 to this one. So you can only do this with the variables of the same time. So I cannot do a mix and match of, let's say, integers and strings. All inline have to be of type integer. So let's continue with some new content. So when you search for data types in C#, you get the following, which are called predefined data types, which come with the language and are friendly to the compiler. So we have a byte, S byte, short, U short, int, U int, long, U long, float, double, decimal, char, bool, object, string, datetime. So the most popular predefined types, are int, bool, and string, right? But C# also allows you to create custom types, which are complex, made out of those predefined types to represent some idea that you want to do. For example, rate conversions are very popular, right? How many times you found yourself on Google convert feet to inches, for example, or convert meters to centimeters, right? So you can do that by creating a custom type, right? So the way you do it is we're going to be using a class, which, as you know from before, is a blueprint. So this class will be a blueprint to create variables for unit conversions, right? So we're going to have we're going to create a class. I'm going to call it unit conversion. Right? So this is basically a naked class. Nothing's going on inside. So we need to be able to somehow store the ratio, the rate of conversion, right? So we can go ahead and create an int, integer type, and we call it rate of conversion, or we can say ratio of conversion, right? Immediately you might say, didn't you tell us that when you create class properties, which are variables declared outside the function inside a class? So here, notice this was created inside the main, but now we are sort of at this layer over here. So this is called a property, which implies variables created outside function inside a class, right? So properties are capitalized, right? But if you have properties that are private, like this one, then it implies that it should be with a lowercase. So the lowercase tells you something is a private. Notice that you don't see anything over here that would tell you something is private, because by default property is private unless you specify that is public. So this will make it public. And this, or leaving off private, will make it private. So what does this deal with private and public? What does that mean? Well, ratios don't change, right? So you don't want, once the ratio is set, you don't want someone to change it, right? So you're sort of like protecting the ratio by making it private. That means it can only be changed inside the class. It cannot be changed by the user. So that's important to keep in mind. Next thing we do is that somehow we need to set a value to that ratio of conversions, right? So one popular way to do this when you create an instance of a class, that means start using that class, is to use something called a constructor, right? So constructor is basically creating a function that is of the same name as the class. So we will go here, public, copy and paste, unit conversion. You open parentheses, and then you add curly brackets, right? So this is a default constructor. By default, it means it doesn't have any parameters. Does not accept any parameters. So if I go in my main program and I type unit conversion, let's do feet to inches, right? Feet to inches. So what just happened, right? So feet to inches is equivalent to like int number 1. You still need to put a value into number 1 to use it. The same thing here, you have to instantiate that class, meaning like assign a value into number 1. So the way you do this with class is you do an equal, you do new, and then you repeat the type of the class. And here is this is called, what we're doing now, this is the custom types, using custom types, right? So whatever we did here, this is a custom type. So let's add a comment. This is an example of a custom type for unit conversion. So notice when I do this, right, I'm going to be utilizing this guy, right? But nothing happens in here, right? You just go in there. It doesn't accept any values, so there's really nothing you can do. So the default constructor does not work here. So we need to be able to receive data. So when you do something is something called overload constructor. So you do the same thing, public unit conversion, but this time you put the means to receive data by creating a parameter. So we want to receive data of type integer, and we're going to call it a ratio here, right? So this is called overload constructor that receives data, right? So now what we do is that we take this ratio of conversion and we assign what is incoming, right? But you say to yourself, well, this is private. So let's just put private here. It was private by default if you omit the word private. So you make this private, but you make this public. What's going on? So you can think of this private as inside the house, right? So here, when something is public, you get inside that house. And now since you're inside, then you can talk to something that's private. Outside of the house, you were public, it's like the door. And now you're inside the house, so you can privately talk. So now you can talk to anything that's private. So now we grab that ratio and we store it. Right? So this doesn't really give us anything. So this is, I'm going to comment this out. This is useless because it does not accept the rate. So we're going to repeat this again. But this time, and notice what happens when I go in here, it gives me two choices, right? I can either pass nothing or I can pass the ratio, right? So then you might ask yourself, well, if you don't do anything with the first one, why you even want to make it available? That's correct. So let's delete this. Let's comment this guy out because it just gets the user confused. So we will use the multiple line comments. And let's do something cool. So remember the / that we did last time? So I do it here. And now I can document this constructor. So you will say here, setting the rate for your conversion, right? And here you can explain that the ratio is ratio that is going to be used, right? So now when I go in here and do this, right? So check this out, right? So I go in here, I type new, I pick unit conversion, and now look what happens. It tells me that this is setting the rate for your conversion, right? And the ratio is the ratio that's going to be used. So when we're talking about feet to inches, we know that 12 feet, 12 inches equals 1 foot, right? So we put 12 here, right? So that's, we set our rate, right? So now you say, okay, so the rate is set, what's up? So now we need to be able to actually do the calculation, right? So we go back to our user defined type. A custom type, right? So let's do public because we want to be able to use it. So let me show you something, right? Let's make this thing private, right? So let's say you don't believe me, right? So let's do private. It will return the number of inches. So inches are of type of integer in this case. We're going to call it convert. And we have to accept something, quantity that we're going to be converting. So int, let's call it a quantity to convert. Okay. All right, so let's do this, right? And we're going to return quantity times the ratio of conversion, right? All right, and we can here say, let's do the forward slash, so we can explain this. So converting, performing unit conversion. We can do quantity to be converted, right? All right, so let's say we have a result, right? So int result equals, now look how this works, right? So I go, the name of the type is unit conversion, the variable is feet to inches, so I type feet to inches, I do period, and where is my convert method? Where is it? It's not there, meaning I have no access to it. So you see, you can access something outside the class if you made it private. So when I'm going to make it public, look what happens, right? So I go in here. Wow, look at this. Convert this back, right? So let's convert 1 foot, right? So let's write console write line converting 1 foot. So or we can say 1 foot equals, we put result. And what's the mistake here, guys? Result is capitalized. It should be lowercase. So result plus concatenation, plus here means concatenation inches, right? So let's save all and let's run this. Errors. So what do we have here? Okay, so it's complaining because here I'm trying to display the value of a bucket that doesn't have a number assigned. So let's comment this one out. So the below is illegal because number 1 does not have a value. All right, so that's fixed, right? Let's save this and let's run this again. So we see 1 foot equals 12 inches, right? What about 2 feet, right? So copy and paste this. You can say 2 feet equals, right? So I can do this again like this, right? Converting 2. But if I'm not doing anything with this result, right? If I just display it and that's it, there's no reason to retain it, right? So what we can do is just display it and forget it. So we can go here instead of displaying the contents of a bucket of type int called result, we can just display what that convert returns right away. So it makes our code more clean, right? So let's save this and run it. So now you see 2 feet equals 24 inches, right? So that little convert is doing the calculation. What about if we want to convert something else? Are we stuck feet to inches? Remember, this is a custom type that you can use over and over. So we go unit conversion, right? Let's do meters to centimeter. And it equals new unit conversion. So how many meters to centimeters? What will be our rate? So 1 meter equals to 100 centimeters. All right, so you see, like how this works is like a blueprint, right? So you are creating conversion types for anything that you want. Then you can do other ones. You can do anything that you want to convert. The only constraint that we have that since we picked integer, should be a whole number, right? So there's no fraction equivalences. So let's do this, right? So copy and paste what we wrote before so we don't retype. So I can say 3 meters equals to some number of centimeters, right? So I take this meters to centimeters. I do a dot to get access to where you can do. So I can convert. So let's convert 3 meters, right? So we expecting to get 300 as the answer, right? So we're gonna go to save all and let's run this. Wow. So look, here we go, 3 meters, 300 centimeters. Yeah, we should add the word equals. 3 feet, 3 feet, 3 meters equals. So this is pretty useful, right? Before I close, I want to show you something cool, right? So remember I mentioned before the word static. So when you're doing, what you're doing here is that basically you're creating an instance of the type, right? So you're doing feet to inches is different than meters to centimeters. It's of the same type, but it's a different instance. And you can have an infinite number of things that you want to do, right? But what happens if you want to share something among them all, right? So this guy and this guy is separate. But let's say you want to share something, right? Let's say you write this program and you want to limit the number of conversions, let's say to 10 per day, or you want to keep track of how many times this thing is being used, right? So that's when we get something called static. Right? So what we will do is basically create a what we should do with this. Yeah, we can make it we will make it private because we don't want people to be changing the accounts, but we can say number of conversions that took place, right? So this is going to be private. Static is going to be int, right? So, and every time a conversion is made, we want to know, right? So I start the counter at 0. And I'm going to go like this, right? So every time I'm converting, I want to increment this by 1. So I can say number of conversions equal itself plus 1, right? But you guys remember there's a programming language called C++. So what does that mean? The below is the same as, you can actually do this. Number of conversions that took place plus plus. So the plus plus means what the above is. Basically take itself and add 1 to it. Right? So this is nice and dandy. Let's save all. But it's still private, right? You need to somehow get the answer back, right? So we can expose it. We can say public int. You can say number of conversions performed, right? And what we're doing is we're going to return the number of conversion that took place. I forgot to add the semicolon, right? So let's document this. Let's say returning the number of conversions that took place. And also all the properties of the class you can also document, right? So if you do // you see I can now document it. So let's say this keeps track of all the conversions, keeps track of the number of all the conversions that took place, right? Then we can go here and we can say ratio of conversion means the rate of conversion that is going to be used, right? So you see, you can start documenting what you're doing, right? So here, the returns component for the conversion, I forgot to put. So we can say that it returns converted value. So when we go here, number of conversions performed, so returns the number of conversions. And I just want to show you something. Like now when I type in number of conversions that took place, and now it doesn't tell me anything here, but people that want to like understand what that does, you can get it from the comments. It's a nice way to document. So okay, so let's save all this. So now we want to know how many times the conversion ran, right? So we can do a console write line. How many conversions were performed? Right? So how do you get there, right? So let's say you can go feet to inches. Or let me see if this, they allow you to do this unit conversion. No. So when you type feet to inches or you do meters to centimeters, you can actually see feet to inches, number of conversions performed. And we need a semicolon here. Let's save all. Okay, it tells us 3, right? But you're saying to yourself, well, that looks good, But why should I go feet to inches to see numbers of conversions performed? That is sort of like what happens if you have a lot of these things. It's sort of difficult to keep track. So how can we fix this? So this is really not ideal to make this like that. But what we can do is this. Notice here I have it as static. Where are we? You can also make the method static. So here we will go public static int, right? So here we no longer do it this way. We will go unit conversion, because this is as a whole. We want to be doing something as a whole, not getting numbers of conversion performed has nothing to do with using the feet or the integers. This works as a whole, applies to everything. So let's treat it this way. So we see now number of conversions performed becomes available. And we do it this way, right? So I'm not married to feet to inches or meters to centimeters. I do unit conversion dot number of conversions performed. So let's save all and let's run this. So you see, it gives us as 3. So this is a nice way to do this. You see, I could have made this guy public. So if I made him public, right, look what happens, right? Public. Look at the danger that can happen, right? So I make him public. So someone can go in and look and do this. Look, unit conversion dot number of conversions that took place and set it equal to 10. So now look what happens. You see, it tells me how many conversions were performed. 10. But that's not true. That's not true. So you see, why is it important to keep something private and public? So you don't want the user that's going to be using that unit conversion type to make this mistake. So that's why it's important that this gets isolated and done here. So this should be made private. So when I make this private, this is now illegal. That's why it's important to use private and public to isolate your code from mistakes by the user. So publics, privates are very important. So since this is now illegal, I have to comment it out. So it was a little bit deeper today, but I hope you guys learn a lot, and it's gonna get more and more advanced, but it's gonna go at a very nice pace, so it will be easier to understand. Please, if you have any questions about anything over here, leave me comments. And, just feedback, everything is important. I answer every comment. I take everything seriously because I'm doing this for you guys, you know, for your growth and understanding of programming. Thank you very much. Please subscribe. All the best. Bye bye.